all the changes you seem to want to implement to the ANC, there's still many challenges out there. One of the challenges you cited yesterday was poverty, inequality, but it is the expropriation of land without compensation. You spoke on education. Have you put time frames to this, Mr. President, to say when will we see this come to pass, especially so far as the expropriation of land without compensation?
The conference took a number of resolutions that really form our program of action. Now, when and how we do this still has to be finally worked out. We are going to be setting out a very clear program of when we will do all these things, and some of them are a process. Some of them will be done on a pilot basis. Some of them have to be workshopped. Some of them we have to hold extensive discussions, and some of them we have to collaborate with a number of stakeholders. So the important thing for us is that we are going to commence with the process of implementing the resolutions. For instance, the free education one was announced by President Zuma, a state president, and we as the ANC have supported that, but the implementation thereof is going to be done building up on a gradual basis, starting off with those new students whose families earn less than 350,000, and even then that will be within the means that the government has, and many other decisions are ongoing decisions that we need to embark on.
Yesterday your theme came out strongly, that the party had made a decision to work on unity. However, there are still people out there, some in the party, some outside the party, who are still calling on President Jacob Zuma to go, to be recalled by the ANC, or to step down voluntarily. Do you not think that this will injure this model of unity that you're trying to create?
Well, unity is an overriding theme. You are absolutely correct. Unity is actually the foundation stone on which the African National Congress was founded in 1912. So it is a process, it is something that we are going to be working on through the year, and that being our key priority areas, everything else is something that should enable us to get there. Now, the point that you mentioned now is a matter that has to be addressed, and we have to address it carefully, delicately, but I can assure you that whatever the ANC will do in relation to this matter will be done in the interests of the people of South Africa.
At what point will you discuss President Jacob Zuma stepping down? We got a report from the Secretary General of the ANC to say that matter was not in this discussion of the ANC, and this was simply the looking at of the January 8th statement. But certain news reports are circulating. So my question is, Mr. President, when will that discussion come up on the recalling of the stepping down of the head of state?
Now, the new tendency has seeped into South African body politic. People try to set agendas for the National Executive Committee of the ANC. They parachute agenda items from the outside and say, this is what you're going to discuss. This is what you must discuss. And the Secretary General was absolutely correct, because this matter, which people wanted us to discuss, was not on the agenda. It is not a matter that was even an item on the agenda of the National Executive Committee. So as I've said, of course the NEC will discuss and can discuss any matter at any time, and whatever we discuss, be it anything, be it free education, be it land, be it, the deployment of people, including my own deployment as Deputy President of the Republic, or President Zuma's deployment of a minister, is something that we can discuss at any time. Now, and I have said that when we discuss any of these matters, we will seek to ensure that we advance the interests of South Africa and South Africans. We will not be seeking to advance the interests of an individual, be it my own interests, be it a minister's interest, be it anybody's interest. And whatever we do and however we do it, when it comes to the head of state, I want it to be clear to everyone. We are not going to do anything that will seek to humiliate and to disrespect the President of the Republic.
Many people in the NEC still call for then President Jacob Zuma to step down. Some go to social platforms to make statements against, the former leader of the liberation movement. And you've spoken thoroughly and in depth concerning the theme of unity. How will you hold certain individuals that bring the party into disrepute or sow division in the party accountable? How will those individuals be held accountable?
I said yesterday very publicly, when I delivered the January 8th statement on behalf of the ANC, of the NEC, I said those people, those individuals who are going with their words, their actions, to seek to threaten and undermine the unity that we are forging will be taken on. We will make sure that we get them to come and account. And I said very clearly, we will call on them to come and explain why they are doing things that threaten our unity. And the response from the ordinary members of the ANC was very positive when it comes to this, meaning that they support this approach that I was talking about yesterday. We do not want to tolerate people who will, by what they say or the way they act, be undermining a collective wish, a collective decision that has been taken by the National Conference of the ANC. So that I am very clear on. We will seek to do things properly and correctly this time around.
Before I move on to my next point, Mr. President, there are reports that there was booing at the stadium yesterday. What is that a symbol of, or what does that suggest to you as the leader of the African National Congress?
I did hear the booing, and that is why when I stood up to speak, I spoke against it. I admonished those who were booing and said that we need to treat each other with respect. We should treat each other in the way that we want to be treated. And it is not correct that whoever else that we may not approve of should be treated with disrespect, should be jeered, should be booed, and should be humiliated in the way that it manifested itself yesterday. The national chairperson also took it up, showing his disapproval with all this. Now clearly, whoever may be unhappy, dissatisfied with whoever, including myself, including President Zuma, should seek to raise those issues directly within the structures of the organization. So we do not approve of booing. Booing is a deviant tendency that we must get rid of in the African National Congress.
Mr. President, let me talk to you about radical economic transformation, a big theme of the 54th National Conference of the ANC. And radical economic transformation or radical socio-economic transformation seem to be the driving agenda of this new NEC. Those models that the ANC depicts may not be liked or appreciated by big business in this country. Are you expecting a clapback or a backlash or some resistance from big business?
No, I'm not expecting when it comes a backlash or a back clap, as you say, from anyone when it comes to the implementation of the resolutions of our 54th conference, particularly in relation to how we redress the inequities, the inequalities, the disempowerment of our people. We all accept that apartheid was bad for South Africa. We all and sundry accept that we're operating in an economy that is deformed. This economy was deformed right from word go. It was deformed from word go because it deliberately was structured in a way where it excluded black people from playing a meaningful role. It is deformed also because it disempowered from a skills point of view black people. So it is a deformed economy. So everyone agrees on that. And with everyone agreeing on that, we now need to restructure this economy and reposition it so that having been repositioned, it becomes an economy that can benefit all South Africans, including those who were privileged in the past, because it is in an expanded economy that their enterprises can also grow. But we want those enterprises not to grow at the expense of black people, because that's precisely what has been happening in South Africa, where the white businesses have grown, have prospered, have profiteered at the expense of black people. Now we are saying that has to come to an end. Now, I don't expect them, those who have been privileged and plundered, to now run and say, no, we have we are going to resist, because if they resist, they stand to lose. The important thing that they should do is to say, we want to work with you. The invitation to them, as I clearly stated in the statement yesterday, is that come work with us. We want a social compact, and we want to work with everyone. And who's that everyone? Is black business, white business, labor, communities, and government. We all get together, work together to advance the interests of the people who've been disempowered. So radical economic transformation is not equals to saying that others are going to be disadvantaged. We want everyone to be advantaged, but especially black people who have suffered economically under the yoke of colonialism and apartheid.
Mr. President, yesterday you spoke about state capture and corporate capture. Now, one of the biggest economic scandals of democratic South Africa is the Steenhoff scandal. What are you prepared to do? You said you were going to come against corporate capture very aggressively. What steps are you going to take so far as Steenhoff is concerned?
Well, the Steenhoff one, I don't think is a corporate capture as such. The Steenhoff one is quite clear. There's been corruption, and most of it is obviously going to come out in the process. There's been the irregularities, and some of it is called collusion or whatever. And whatever it is called, it finally ends up being something that is detrimental to ordinary people in our country. It is detrimental because a number of pension funds have invested in these companies. The Public Investment Commission, for instance, is heavily invested. It basically means that ordinary pensioners are going to lose out. Why do they lose out? Because somebody in that corporation decided to fiddle with the books. There are restatements, misstatements, or whatever it is, but it all amounts to the same thing. It is corruption. And our view is that we must act against corruption, and those who are responsible for corrupt acts must be taken to book. They must be dealt with. But accountability means that we've got to present ourselves, answer the necessary questions, and that is what we want to see also happening with Steinhoff. But we also want to see it in our own state-owned enterprises. We want to see it in government departments. We want to see politicians and civil servants being accountable for their actions, because as politicians, we are put where we are so that we can serve our people. And if in the course of serving our people, we then start serving ourselves, our own families, our own pockets, it is wrong, and we must be made accountable for that.
One of the interesting things you spoke about yesterday was the ownership of the Reserve Bank. And that has been the talking point of organizations in this country for a long time, to say the Reserve Bank is not even owned by South Africans. And I think that was a valid point. But it has no time frame to it, Mr. President. And some may be critical to say a speech that does not give time frames to when things will be done will perhaps not be added to, or it will not happen. Can you give us some time frames on when that work will begin?
Well, speeches, like January 8 speeches, never really give time frame. What they address is the intent, the principles, and the rest of that is then left to those who should implement. What we have clearly said is that we would, as the conference decided, we want the central bank or the Reserve Bank to be in the ownership of the people of South Africa. There's nothing wrong with that. And anybody who is really against that is against, the usual trend, because central banks in many parts of the world are owned by the government or the people. There are a few countries where they are owned by either jointly by the people and the government and the private sector. But our conference has decided that it should be centrally owned. Now, we want that to happen quickly. There are processes that we need to embark on, and there are ways in which this should be done. To give a time frame and to fall short of that time frame will be foolhardy. It is best to say, this is our clear intent, and when it happens, as it happens, then it will be announced. But you can be rest assured that this is what we want to see happen.
As your organization turns 106 years old, it is the oldest liberation movement in Africa. But in this December election, Mr. President, some might say your top six is not gender balanced, or your top six is not necessarily that young, and it will have the exclusion of young people. How are you going to move from that and perhaps create a gender balance? Is there going to be a new policy shift, or how are you going to make sure that this liberation movement still appeals to young people?
Well, the gender balance is something I have spoken about. I think we have gone backwards. We used to have 2 women who are represented in the top 6, and we had hoped that the same would obtain, but in the end it did not happen. And that is the wishes of the membership of the ANC, which I, as president, must respect. But at the same time, I will continue to advocate that it is important for us to have good representation, not only of gender, but of youth or of age, even in the top 6.
Let's talk for a minute about the Judicial Commission of Inquiry. President Jacob Zuma has announced that Judicial Commission of Inquiry, and there seems to be a fight of the public protectors. The current public protector is saying the terms of reference are right to be extended back to 1994. but the former public protector is saying that would need another inquiry altogether. What is the ANC's response to that?
Well, the ANC National Conference decided that, one, a commission of inquiry must be set up, and it must be based on the public protector's findings. So that clarifies the matter as far as the ANC is concerned. But we also should say that clearly those who are saying that there were certain things that happened in the past which could amount to state capture also needs to be looked at, fair and good. So we need to then say, how do we look at that? Now, the current situation was given rise to by clear allegations, allegations that were pinpointed, with witnesses that were identified. Now, going back to, others are saying go back to 1652. Others are saying go back to 1948.
Investigate Jan van Riebeck.
Yes, there are some who are suggesting that. Others are saying go back to 1994. Well and good, because, I mean, this thing of state capture, by the way, is not unique to South Africa. It happens all over the world, where certain entities, including the private sector, just see an opportunity and go in and capture the state. So it is possible, and I think there could well be evidence of a state capture type of situation from 1994, 1948, even 1652. I'm a student at history, and I know that, yes, there could well be from 1652. But that has to be a separate process. It cannot be collapsed into this process, because if you do, imagine if you go back to 1652, 1948, and 1994, you're going to be involved in a commission for the next 5 years. And yet this one, you've got the documentation, you've got the witnesses, you've got the actors right now, and investigate that, finish that. If you want to do 1994, start another process. 1652, start another process.
I'll tell you where this question springs out of, Mr. President. At a press briefing in Luthuli House, the former SG of the ANC, Mr. Gwede Mantashe, announced that the ANC NEC had decided that the Judicial Commission of Inquiry would look at state capture from as far back as 1994. However, it sounds now like the goalposts have shifted from what Mr. Mantashe said.
Well, the National Conference has said the commission must be set up and based on the decisions of the public protector, and so therefore that answers that. But having said that, does not mean that doing the other one, the two are mutually exclusive. It basically means that you could, in the end, have a process that are mutually sort of complementary, but that should be focusing on what needs to be addressed. The one can address another phase, and the other one can address another phase. And this is not the first time that something like this would have happened, where a commission says, we will focus on this and issue a report, we will focus on the other and issue a report. So it's not something new.
My closing question to you, Mr. President. The President of the United States of America, Mr. Donald Trump, has said offensive things against African countries. As president of the biggest party in this country, how do you respond to that?
Well, I think what Mr. Trump is alleged to have said was really, really derogatory of people who live on this continent, who live in Haiti, and who live in Panama, the three areas that he referred to. It is hugely offensive. And Mr. Trump's statement really just demonstrates to precisely the type of leader that he is. A leader should not be casting aspersions about countries where other people live and casting negative aspersions against those countries. Many of us, whatever we may think of the United States, would never be as insulting, as derogatory, and as offensive as he has been about the United States. Because there are people who live there, and one needs to give due respect to people, and that is a basic tenet of humanity, that we need to be respecting one another, whatever we may think of them as people, and that's what one expects of leaders around the world. And no doubt, that is why there's been so much widespread condemnation. So as the African National Congress, we say it is most unfortunate that President Trump has been heard to have made such offensive statements. We know that South Africa is not a sinkhole. We know that South Africa is the home of 55 million people.
I don't think he said sinkhole, but anyway.
Stinkhole.
Yeah. He said the other.
He said maybe, he said much worse.
He said that.
Yeah, he said that.
Yes.
And we are not. We are a country of 55 million people who see their country as a great country. So we are not a shithole. We are South Africa, and we are proud of who we are, and we are proud of our country.
The President has put it on the record. As we close this interview, Mr. President, on a softer note, what would you like to be remembered for?
Well, I'm not about to die, am I? I think people who want to be remembered for something are people who are about to die. I'm not about to die, and I'm here to work. I'm here to work for the people of our country. I've been put here by the membership of the African National Congress to serve the people of South Africa, and that's what I am prepared to do. I'm not here to win, an award or to win a prize, to be remembered for that or that. I am here to work, and that's all I want to be remembered for. A simple worker who wanted to improve the lives of our people. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for this interview.
You're most welcome.
And that was the President of the ANC, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, speaking candidly and off the cuff. We are not a stinkhole. I am Sifiso Mahlangu. This is Straight Talk, channel 405, only on DSTV. Thank you for watching. It's a goodbye from me.